So in this video, I'm going to be going over how do we like show back up to this moment. You know, I painted these out yesterday, and but you know, I need to go back into them because they're not strong enough. If you've watched the design and composition video, or if you haven't watched it, watch it now. That will give you some clues into like why we need to paint these out. And also, it's also about finding that artistic voice, which is a long journey, and I feel like it's ever evolving when you're in your practice consistently. Whether, you know, when you're in your life consistently, when you're changing and growing, that's, your ideas are gonna change. So all of these things matter. There's like so many things, so many little nuances and variables to the creative process, the art process, and just living, right? All these little moments add up to something bigger, and that's the only way to go. I'm Natalie DiDamio. I'm a mixed media, abstract, expressionist painter, and a soulful guide and creator, intuitive guide and channel, bringing you back the color and light here in all the ways. But in this case, we're going to be painting it out today. We're going to be walking back into a moment that we already did. And I'm going to be talking about what that means and how I see it. So let's get started. Just be working back into these small works on paper. They're at various stages. Like, what happens with, like, say, a more immediate moment is I love that kind of moment. And I kind of keep training myself for it to be a single solo expression. But there's, like, many ways to look at it. And this can't always stand alone, but then it can. But it's, like, I find it very difficult. And it takes a lot of focus. Even though there's intuition there's a lot of other things. There's been like technical understanding and training and learning about composition and design, and then unlearning and then learning and then rethinking and thinking again. So it's not as simple as just intuition. And to me, as a mixed media abstract expressionist painter, you know, intuition is like falling under that category. Same thing with energy and emotion. And then memory. I like all those three underneath the umbrella, and that's just my feelings about it. So, and you're allowed to have your own definition, but I could see when you just have one without the other, maybe you lose something. And that's just from years of like thinking about this. But in this case, somebody was asking me the question, how do I go back in to a piece on a new day? And you can see all of these are in different points and stages. And these are layered expressive mixed media works on paper. And I do have a class available called Unleashing Creative Freedom, where we cover mark making in the first section, where I talk about energy, intuition, emotion, and memory, and your childlike nature, and connect that into how we relate to our mark making. And that gets you opening and thinking about it. And then the second section will go over working with alternative papers, because a lot of times I'm using in this paper process a layered paper and paint process. And there's certain papers that hold up good in like a water bath. That's all in the class, those understandings. And then you'll finally make a series of works on paper in the class. And so that's available, and I'll put that in the comments below. But for this video right now, is what I want to go over is these are all at different points and places and stages. Some are farther along, like for the instance, this one is totally farther along than this one, although this one has some nice, you know, elements going on. So how do I go back in was the question. Like, when, you know, in this case, because I'm building the layers So I'm looking for, I want to have that history on the surface. I want to have that texture, and I want to have layers of papers and paint. So in that case, like I know my objective, and so that's what I want to be doing with this expressive mixed media works on paper. I want to be like building upon it and going in to make more surface texture and have more things going on. So in that case, like, it's easy for me to go back in because, well, I know my objective is to build it up, because it's, to me, as much as I love like an immediate moment, and I practice this all the time, and I actually make work. I make a few different kinds of work. I'll make a immediate work, and that's something on its own that takes a lot of focus, and it does take intuition, but it also takes like a direct experience within the moment and really releasing into the like thing and letting it be. It's hard to sometimes just let it be. And then in these cases, and then on even larger work, it's just easy to demo on the small pieces as a demo. I'm like thinking about it, and like these have been sitting around, so I'm like kind of letting them linger. Maybe I'm working on something else. I'm taking my time, you know, and that's gonna be like the reason why I need to go back into this one. Let's just take this one. Is like it's not enough. Like I have this dark mark down here, and I don't really have any other darks. These colors are a little bit darker in value, but so it's like a very weak composition. Even though there's like a lot of fun things going on, like and sometimes it's usually like in the first 2 to 3 layers, I'm really just like having fun and working out how it feels and the relationships to maybe what the color and the line and the marks are doing. And I'm not really even composing anything until it's almost like the painting makes itself once you know the compositional elements and study the design more. You won't like feel as intimidated to go back in, because you'll be like, this just isn't enough. But those are all gotta be your own individual sensibilities, and that's why it's hard to learn these technical things and then break away from it and then move back into intuition and have it all kind of like working together. That's why it's called an art practice, you know. It's not one and done, and we're always changing, and growth requires experimentation and diving deeper into our emotional awarenesses, into the technical learning, into our inspirations. And what I'm gonna do is go back through these, and after I gave that little speech, and now we're gonna go into the next section where you're just gonna see me paint them out. One thing I want to say, it's a call and response. When we go back into something, we kind of look at that bottom part wasn't holding it together. But see, what I really love about this is like these marks, these cloud-like, flowery, weird shapes, whatever that is. I love that. But you know, sometimes, you know, we just have to like destroy what we love. But it doesn't mean we can't bring it back, you know. And you know what? We can bring it back even better. The things we love, we could bring it back bigger and stronger, and with more focus and determination, and that's what's cool about painting. And once you get to know your process and your marks, and like how you work with color and how you think about design and composition, and then how you then add back in intuition, you can just go for it, you know, and you can bring it back to life. And I love art making for that kind of purpose, you know. It's just it's so invigorating. It teaches us so much about so many things when we really get in there. And I mean, you could say I am in love with it. So that's why we go back in, you know. We want to make it more dominant, more prominent, more, we want to, like, just because what we had before was maybe weaker doesn't mean we can't bring it back. Or, you know, even change it up entirely. So it's always changing, and I get it, like, then that becomes like, when do we stop? But when you know that it's not strong enough because you've thought about composition and design more, you can then, like, you can assess the situation. And, like, what the problem here is for me is this: I love that, like, yellow triangle mark, but I don't like this side. It's kind of, this is all like mid-value. This is kind of just floating up here, but it anchors this, and it comes over here. And I'd really like to, like, probably knock this out. You know, it's just as the artist, kind of, you're the creator of this experience, and you're determining, like, what you want it to be. And maybe it seems nonsensical to, like, oh, why did I just waste all that time on that other layer? But in essence, we're kind of like working out the design and composition as we go, and we're intuiting more over time, and knowing, like, that internal feeling state, and also accessing it from a thoughtful place. So, you know, it doesn't, I'm probably going to just obliterate the whole thing because it just wasn't working overall, you know. And I think this is why we practice on the smaller work, you know, because you want it to, you want to kind of have more of an understanding in the smaller work in the relationship to why you're knocking this out, what's not working, why. Because when you move to scaling, everything gets more challenging. It just does. Especially if you're trying to scale your process in a particular way. I think it would be dependent on what you're trying to do. I just want to put that in there. And then, like, I think, like, what's happening is it wants to be this yellow, but, you know, I'm not really sure. What's going on? I have these, like, and I have these pieces over here. So sometimes just to, like, anchor another moment, I'll use a piece of collage. So in a way it's random because I just selected it from the over there, but then it's calculated because I'm thinking, like, I want to go from here to here, or maybe go into this place. So there is a thinking underneath the intuition, because it's like a feeling state, and that's why I teach in my class Unleashing Creative Freedom about how we can find the feeling and how we can open more to the energy and the emotion, because when we're less afraid, we'll just move into these experiences, and when we have some kind of understanding of where we're going, we can like deepen our relationship to all of it. It's gonna be a nightmare. It's like this yellow, huh? Sometimes I'll just be working away, and the reason why I like to come back to these days after day, because it's a cyclic process. And well, like right now I just feel like, oh, that was enough like expression and moment on the surface, and I'll notice I feel tired on this one, and also I want to let that pink dry because I don't want to like muddy it up too much. So I'm following all these sensitivities. It's not just making marks and coloring. It's like, oh, now I feel in my body this is enough time, so I'll switch it out. And I'll move on to the next experience in the moment, and then what happens is I'll access accordingly, like what is maybe interesting. Like I'd like to lighten up this top section a little bit more. So I'm just gonna lighten it up a little bit, and then do what I normally do. And the thing about that is, we can kind of always scrub it back out if we want to, and like see what's underneath. So it's knowing your relationship to colors, to marks, to how you're feeling, to what you desire. There's so many like moving parts really when you get into it. That's why it's important to write about it. And I do have another class called Visual Mining, which is a very affordable and accessible 2-hour-ish class. It's a little over 2 hours for $60. And you learn to look at artist inspiration, and you learn to make marks from your own words and start to build that internal dialogue and relationship, because that's really important. And of course, this is the way I see it. This is what makes me the artist that I am. This is how I do have my art practice and process over the years. And it's like changed and grown a lot. And because I've been working consistently and constantly on like all these things. And I'm not done. I'm actually in an evolving state right now, like an expansion, where I'm moving into teaching and sharing more of my soulful wisdom, and not just in art making, but in all the expressions. So as I expand into that awareness, things change, and that's what you want to try to. Well, the biggest thing is, accept where you are, because you can't be anywhere you're not. We can wish it, we can be sad or jealous or feeling bad, but all we can really do is choose ourselves and choose our expressions, and like choose what to learn and what's important, and choose your own direction. But it means you have to be in the process of it all, right? And it means facing fears, admitting hard things, sometimes letting go of something that you don't want to let go of. So many things, and these are all big lessons. Art making has so many lessons about like how we show up to life, when we can see where we're stuck in our artwork, and then we can usually like look out externally and see, oh wow, this thing isn't really working here, and it has like an inner relationship almost. It's really strange, but pretty cool. So I hope you gained some insight from how to show back up to your work when the next day or like 2 days after you painted it, and how to go back in, how to like access it. That's a lot of times why these things are sitting around. I'm just like waiting for that moment. And that's why I'm always working on small work to large to tiny sketchbook work. And one thing we can do if we're having trouble is to start small and start a daily practice. And I'll put that video right here. And it's all about, you know, showing up daily so it can grow.